So, welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson, and I started an eco conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. Now, at Oxford Clay, I don't just make pottery, I also make resources such as books and courses and information for other potters who want to be more eco-conscious in their pottery practice but maybe don't know where to start or can't find out the information they need. So that's what this podcast is all about. It's about sharing everything I've learned along my eco-conscious pottery journey with you, and I can't wait to get started. So let's go. Hello, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Tomlinson. And today's episode, I just wanted to tell you about writing a pottery book, like how I write my pottery books, in case you were thinking, oh, like I'd really like to write a book, but I don't know like how, or well, I'm going to tell you like how I write my pottery books, and then you can see that like it's something that like absolutely you could do if you wanted to write a book. But also, like, I mean, this is one way of doing it. There's probably loads of other ways of like writing books and stuff. But yeah, just wanted to tell you kind of how I do it. So, okay, so the first thing to say is that my pottery books have always come out of like a kind of curiosity for me in terms of like the way I'm making my own pottery. And then, so what comes first for me is like, oh, like trying things, experimenting, like sort of knowledge seeking just for my own kind of my own joy and my own kind of pottery experience and like my own curiosity and like following that interest. And then what happens is after I've done that, I think, oh, maybe like somebody else would find this interesting. Maybe this would be interesting to somebody else. And also because I've spent like a long time kind of like doing the kind of physical experiments for like lots like for my own pottery practice, say for example creating loads of glaze testing or something. I always think, oh, well, if I put this in a book, this would save somebody else all that time that they would have to spend like creating all these different, physical experiments. So that's another reason I do it. I just think this would be so good to kind of almost like translate this kind of the time I've spent making all this stuff or like thinking about all this stuff or like reading or researching. Then it would like save another person that time. They'll just be able to pick up the book and be like, oh, look, there's a glaze recipe for this or this color or something. So that's where it comes from. It comes from like a kind of just like kind of unfiltered, unwavering curiosity about pottery. And that's why I mean, like when this episode comes out, I've got 5 pottery books, but potentially in the future there'll be like another idea that will like pop into my mind. And I'll be like doing that. So at the moment there are 5. So I'll tell you about each book and just like yeah, we'll do it in chronological order actually. Okay, so the first book I ever wrote was Eco-Friendly Pottery: 30 Simple Ways to Make Your Pottery Practice More Ethical and Sustainable. And like I said, that was just born out of my own curiosity about like how I could make my own pottery more sustainable and eco-friendly. So it's like everything I was learning and like researching and like just like reading about, yeah, I put into eco-friendly pottery. Um, yeah, because I thought, oh well, this is great. I've like compiled a list of all the things I'm trying to put into practice in my own pottery, and like maybe this would be useful for somebody else. And then what happened was I was kind of like, I got really interested in kind of like about pottery materials and like the provenance of pottery materials and like where they came from and like how they were mined and how to actually make like really standard things like pottery glazes from like materials that had the least kind of ecological impact on the earth, and also like the people mining them and also like the animals and plants like in the habitats where these materials were getting mined. So then that's when I wrote Eco-Conscious Pottery Glazing. So yeah, so that book, Make Your Own Pottery Glazes with Minimal Harm to Humans, Animals, and the Environment. So this book was really just like me just researching different ways of glazing pottery. It's all stoneware, but like just different recipes. So I kind of went to the library, like libraries, and like researched like loads of different recipes, and then just tried out like a bajillion different recipes, and with ingredients that I'd selected to be like sort of created this framework of like they've got to be local as possible. They've got to be in areas where like there's high regulation to protect, people mining the material, and also like the environment as well. And yeah, just making sure they came from like a single source, so that I knew exactly where that material was from. So once I'd got that kind of framework, then I applied it and created loads of like different glazes. And then I tested them with like the raw glazing technique as well. So that was really interesting, because then I could see, like, so raw glazing is basically when you don't do a bisque fire, you basically just fire pottery from bone dry straight up to stoneware, like straight up to glazing temperatures. And so I thought, well, that would be another really good way of like saving energy, like saving the energy from a bisque fire, for the electricity. So I tested all the recipes, like tested them all with the raw glazing technique as well. So that was that book. And then I got really interested in ash glazing, and that's probably because like I was like learning lots about like different pottery glaze recipes in from eco-conscious pottery glazing. A lot of those recipes were like, 'cause the books I was reading were kind of like books from kind of the 90, lots of them from the 19 kind of 70s, and before that maybe the 1950s, and glaze recipes like, there was a time when a lot of glaze recipes used ash, like ingredients like wood ash and stuff. And so yeah, lots of the recipes I was seeing were like ash recipes. And then I was using an ash recipe in my own pottery practice as well, because I was like recycling ashes from wood burning stove, like into a pottery glaze. So I thought, ooh, ash glazing. And then so I got really, really interested in ash glazing. And then like I got really obsessed with the idea that like different plants produce like different pottery glazes in terms of like where they're grown, and like the like the sort of meteorological conditions they're grown in, and like the part the soil they're grown in, and like the fact that they're like a different species from another plant. And I got really obsessed with the fact that like that creates a different glaze every time. So then I just basically tested absolutely loads of different plants, and then I put all those experiments in pottery glazing with plant ash, 60 plant-based glazes from one simple recipe. So that's like, yeah, exactly what it's like. It says on the cover, it's basically just like one recipe and then like loads and loads of different plants I tested. I spent like, gosh, a really long time, a couple of years really, just like collecting different plants, identifying different plants, drying them, and then like burning them into an ash, and then yeah, and then making glazes from them, and then putting them all in that book. Yeah, just so if you thought like, oh, I want to just, yeah, like, oh yeah, I got really into the fact that it's like a renewable source as well, a renewable source of like a glaze making material. So the recipe in that book uses 40% plant ash, and so yeah, it's like 40% renewable, like yeah, renewable glaze making material, not a rock that has to be mined, just literally like a renewable source of glaze making material. So because I was really now obsessed with the fact that it was renewable, I suddenly thought, "Oh my goodness, what if you could make loads of pottery glazes from, something that plants don't need anyway when they're like shedding their leaves naturally, say like in autumn." So then I spent the next sort of couple of years collecting leaves, loads of leaves that plants had naturally shed. And then I put all those experiments in a book called Leaf Ash Glazing: A Guide to Sustainable Pottery Glazing with Fallen Leaves. So my criteria for that book was that they had to be naturally fallen leaves. So I basically would just like I'll identify the plant, like say in the spring and summer. And then like by the autumn was like a really busy time, because I basically then collected all these leaves from all these different like trees and bushes, and then made glazes with them. Made glazes. And so, yeah, so all the glazes in that book are basically made with leaves that have just naturally fallen. And I collected them, dried them a little bit more, made them into loads of different glazes. Yeah, 36 different glazes in that book made with leaves that just naturally fallen. And that was just amazing. And like the really amazing thing was that like different leaves would create sort of different like colors naturally, just from the fact that they just from different plants. So some of them, for example, were like a little bit yellowy, like not bright colors, but kind of like little a little bit brown, a little bit green, like very beautiful, kind of really gently coloured pottery glazes. So then that really got me thinking, okay, so you can like create colour with ashes, plant ashes. So why don't I make a book where I basically just try loads of different like ways that I know of making colour. So that was the fifth book I've written, which just come out in September 2024, called Eco Conscious Pottery Colour. And again, just literally following curiosity, just making loads and loads of like different glaze tests. And I thought, like, especially with the glaze test, you think, yeah, like, I was saying to you at the beginning of the episode, like, you put so much work into kind of like trying different recipes. It's kind of, it can take a lot of time, just kind of like weighing everything out, and then like trying sort of different, like firing something like different, like like concentrations of like clay, or different concentrations of like the coloring oxide you're using, like because in this book it uses like rust and verdigris as well, and tells you how to make your own verdigris and like your own rust and put those into like loads of different glaze recipes. So it's like if I've gone to the sort of like, yeah, if I've created all these recipes, then like it'd be so cool to share them with people. They don't have to like then do all these like bajillion experiments and then yeah, so that's why I made that book, and I just thought, oh, this is great. And what's happened really is that like every book is built on the last one, and then they kind of become like the color book is really like a culmination of all the techniques that I've been learning over the years of making pottery, in terms of like creating color, because that was kind of, yeah, for me that was like one of the most difficult things to achieve in my own pottery practice. So yeah, okay, so that's like the kind of the evolution of like all the books I've written. But in terms of like making the books, writing the books, basically, there'll be like, so the process is like interested in something, usually do lots of practical experiments around something. And then what I'll do is I'll then start sort of reading around a subject. And sometimes these things are happening like at the same time, the kind of experiments and the reading around a topic is like kind of simultaneous process. And I'll read like, journal articles, I'll read books, or chapters in books on like mining, or there'll be journal articles on kind of, journal articles are amazing because they're often like very specific, so you can get really niche topics about metal mining and metal oxides, and just how things are produced and how things are mined, and the impact on like the environment and impact on people. And another source I use as well is like charity reports. So like Amnesty International, they've done lots of research on like the cobalt mining industry, for example. So oh yeah, newspaper articles is another really good source for kind of information on like mining and pollution and the impact of mining on people. Um, so yeah, so I bring all that together, and then I kind of write a first draft of the book, and I usually sort of write this in either Word or like Google Docs. I can write as well in Google Docs. And then what I then do is I then put all of the text that I've written into a kind of formatted book on Canva. So then I use Canva to actually like create the kind of physical book. And that's simply because Canva's like a very like accessible like program. I don't know. I know that book publishers use like Quark Express and or like maybe Photoshop or something like that. And like I just don't have the sort of technological capabilities to create books with those programs. And Canva's a very accessible way of like creating in like an amazing looking book. Like you've got all these designers which design all these templates, and then you can use all these amazing templates. And so it's a fantastic way of like creating a book, like the way it looks and stuff. And then what I do is, once I've created my book, I sort of, do loads of proofreading and go through and put the references in, and just, yeah, so that's quite a long process as well, just formatting it, making it look all nice. And then what I do is I then get some help from a contractor on Fiverr, and she just like helps me like format the book for Amazon. So Amazon needs a certain like file type for their like KDP publishing, and to learn how to actually put a book on Amazon, I watched a YouTube video. So I just like watched this person like go through all the steps of like how to upload a book onto like Amazon, like sort of self-publishing KDP platform. And so that's how I knew how to do that. And yeah, so once I got the file back from that contractor, then like I upload it myself onto Amazon, and like that's it really. Like, and then what I'll put a PDF copy of the book. I download that from Canva and I put that on like my own website, and then that's what like through the website people can get that PDF copy. So yeah, so like I hope you see that it's like it's something that you could do if you wanted to write a book. It is absolutely, available to you. Like the world needs your ideas, the world needs your voice, the world like it needs your curiosity. And yeah, and it is absolutely achievable if it's something you wanted to do. So yeah, I hope that's kind of yeah, just like giving you an insight into like how potentially that could be possible if that's something you wanted to do. And yeah, it's been really nice to share it with you. Really fun, like sharing like the bookmaking process with you. And yeah, like wishing you very happy potting, very happy, like researching, or very happy, like physical potting if that's what you're doing this week. And yeah, really looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. And I'll see you then. Goodbye. Oh, yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you're interested to learn more about eco conscious pottery or making your pottery more eco conscious and sustainable, there's so much for you on the Oxford Clay website, which is www.oxfordclay.co.uk. I can't wait to see you there.